All right, we had another good group of folks jump on here. I'm Josh Krenz. I'm your host tonight. We're going to get started here in a few seconds. Welcome to everyone. Thanks for taking time here on this Thursday night to join us for the American Highland Cattle Association educational seminar here tonight. The screen that we've got up here, if you've got questions for our presenter, Rick, here, at the end of his presentation, I will be asking him questions. But if you would like for your question to be asked, then please text me or email me. You can see those on the screen here. I also just did send out a group chat to everybody on Zoom that knows how to use the Zoom chat function. You can also chat to me individually as well, and I'll take those questions here on the Zoom chat as well. So just send those to me individually in the chat. So any one of those three ways, we'll get your questions asked to Rick. So it's about a minute after here. So we'll go ahead and get started with our presentation here tonight. So again, our presentation tonight is creating Highland beef demand and foraging partnerships. And we'll introduce our speaker here in just a couple minutes. To start with that, just wanted to take a second and welcoming everyone tonight. This is a free educational seminar. It is being recorded, and we will be putting it on the American Highland Cattle Association website at a later point in time here in the next couple of weeks. So if you want to watch it again, or if you want to share it with any of your friends or family and educate them more on what we're doing on the beef side of the business here for ACA, you can be able to do that here coming soon. But for anyone who's maybe not familiar with the American Highland Cattle Association, we are the association in the USA that's recognized for preserving the integrity of the breed. And we have the registry that is recognized internationally for holding our pedigrees and for registering cattle and continuing to harness and preserve the American Highland cattle and going forward. We've been doing that since 1948, and we'll be having our 75th anniversary here next year. Watch for more details from ACA to come on that as well. So some of the key attributes we do as an association is we have a managing board of directors and many committees. So this presentation, this educational seminar, is actually brought to you by the Highland Beef Marketing Committee, which is made up of breeders all over the United States who really focus in on trying to breed beef animals and sell beef generally on a local level. Those breeders have come together to try to share with the rest of the association and other members like yourselves so that we can all learn from each other. ACA's main offices are in Brighton. You've probably talked to Gina Moses and the staff there before if you've done registrations or transfers. They're super helpful if you ever need any help there. We maintain membership records. There's 6 regional associations. So if you want to get involved in ACA locally, you can join your regional association. You can find all of that information on our ACA website as well, which is at the bottom here, highlandcattleusa.org. And as a member, you also get other things. You know, you get the bagpipe journal. You get access to things like the Highland Beef Quality Beef Assurance Program. The Highland Cattle Foundation is a supporter of the American Highland Cattle Association. So those are all reasons to support and become members of ACA. From a Highland Beef Marketing Committee standpoint, we've got several educational tools that we have. The educational tools are to really help you promote beef locally. And one just brings some of those to your attention. These can be found on the ACA website, and you can actually, there's a link on the website that you can actually link and have these tools sent directly to you. So also there's the Quality Highland Beef Program, which has been going on for several years through ACA. And the Quality Highland Beef Program is to help you have some standards around promoting Highland beef locally. If you sign up and you agree to the Quality Highland Beef standards, you can use that logo as you're selling your beef locally. There's also materials that you can utilize like grocery bags, stickers, flyers, and so forth. And then the other thing from a beef marketing standpoint is just remember we have the University of Missouri study that was paid for and conducted by the Highland Cattle Foundation here about 5-6 years ago. And that study is some of the basis that we utilize for the marketing materials that you can see examples here on this page. And so all that information is available on Highland Cattle USA as well. Just wanted to make you aware of those here tonight. So that's our quick infomercial to let you know a little bit more about ACA and what we're doing on the Highland Beef Marketing Committee. And at this point in time, I'd like to introduce our main speaker here for tonight, Rick Markson from Markson Farm. Rick's in Oregon. Rick has been raising cattle for a long time and Highlands for a long time. He's been very active in the American Highland Cattle Association. He's a past board director. He's a past committee chairperson for different committees, including the Highland Beef Marketing Committee. He's been on the ethics committee and other committees as well. So Rick is super active in the Highland world, but also super active on the farm where they sell beef from. And that's what we're really going to focus on here tonight. So without further ado, Rick, I'm gonna toss it over to you.
All right. Thanks very much, Josh. Very briefly about Markson Farm. We bought the original 32 acres and the 1852 Pioneer House in 1974. We originally raised sheep and Angus cattle. We switched or started to switch to Highland cattle in 1990, which is also when we joined the American Highland Cattle Association. We've grown quite a bit. We now run on 300 acres. 200 is owned, 100 is leased. We have 250 head of Highland cattle, and we've just started to calve 80 mother cows. Last year, we sold 91 animals into the meat market. So, and what we sell is purebred, 100% purebred, grass-fed, grass-finished Highland beef. A couple preliminary things. One is the three principal activities or strategies that I'm going to talk about tonight aren't ones that you can do in series. In other words, do A, then do B, then do C. You've really got to, if you want to get into selling Highland beef, you really need to do all three at the same time. It's like solving a simultaneous equation. You can't really develop a market unless you have the beef, but you also don't want to have the beef and not have the market and not have a way to process it. So you do it all three at the same time. The first thing I'll talk about is developing a market. Some time ago, a fellow from North Carolina who has been very successful selling Highland beef over time was asked what his secret to marketing was. And his answer was, get it in their mouths. There's a lot of wisdom to that. Highland beef is just extraordinary. It is fabulous. But virtually no one knows anything about it. So our approach has been, how do we get as much Highland beef into as many mouths as we possibly can? The other basic point I'd like to make, and it's in the cattle industry, it's counterintuitive, but it sure applies to Highland, and that is, there really is no market for Highland beef. You're going to create the market for Highland beef. So anything any one of us does is not a zero-sum game. Anything any one of us does to promote Highland cattle and Highland beef will inure to the benefit of all of us. And so it's a different way of thinking about the meat business. That isn't how the Angus people approach it at all. So in terms of creating a market, getting Highland beef into the mouths of potential customers, we went at it several different ways. And the first and most important way, I guess, was our website and our presence in on social media. I can't take credit for the website. It was done actually for anything on social media, but the website was done by a daughter of a very good friend of ours, and it tries to play to what we think are the strengths of Highland beef. One is we include in our website a study, a nutritional study that was done by the Scottish Agricultural College. Our target market, at least we think our target market, are people who are A, very interested in knowing where their meat came from, B, how were the animals raised, and C, what are the nutritional attributes of the meat. So we emphasize the heritage of the animal, lots of photographs to take advantage of the magnificent appearance of the animals, and then the Scottish Highland or the Scottish Agricultural College study. And we also emphasize that we raise these animals as they evolve naturally in Scotland. We don't baby them. We don't halter break them. We want them to be naturally protected because there are predators where we live: cougar, bear, and coyotes. Coyotes are only an issue for the first couple of days of a calf's life. And we then try and tell the story of the farm through Instagram and Facebook. And we also publish current photographs on the website as well. We sell a lot of meat over the website. We sell hides over the website too. So it's been very effective for us. I occasionally write articles which get published, and that's about all the credit I can take for the website and social media. But it is a key component of what we've done. Farmers markets. So I was a little slow on the uptake here on farmers markets. They take a lot of time, but they are incredibly effective. What we noticed is at first we had to beg and beg more to be allowed into the farmers markets. We're now in a situation where we actually are being solicited by farmers markets. So we're selecting the ones that we're going to go to because our product has been so well received. But farmers markets, whether somebody buys your meat or a package of hamburger or whatever out of curiosity or by accident, doesn't really matter. You're getting food, you're getting Highland beef into the mouths of consumers. I can't really even tell you how many people, after they bought their first Highland beef, have come up to me subsequently and in a somewhat joking way told me that I've ruined them because they can't possibly think of going back to buying commodity beef again. We stress, particularly if somebody's buying a steak, virtually the last thing that I say to them as they walk away from our booth is rare, medium rare, ruined. You have to be sure that they take care to prepare this meat as it should be, given how lean it is. It also, after a while, I guess I've always liked people. After a while, you really get a chance to educate people about Highland beef. For example, you can show them, I mean, again, ours is all purebred, but a purebred Scottish Highland steak is deep, deep red. I mean, deep red. And what little fat is on it is yellow, and it's buttery in taste. Whereas the fat that's on a grain-fed animal or a potato-fed animal, potato peel-fed animal here in Oregon, will be white, hard, and sticky. And the pink color comes from the fact that the fat isn't just marbled in, it actually is infused into the muscle itself. And I tell people, I said, the Angus folks have done a really good job convincing both the USDA and consumers that fat is good for you, and that's where the taste comes from. But we have a very different view of it. We don't think fat's particularly good for you, and the taste that you'll get in a Highland animal will be from the meat, not from the fat. The other thing that you can point out to them is that most people, when they buy a commodity animal that is supposedly grass-fed, think that it's grass-finished as well, and it's not. We emphasize that ours are grass-fed and grass-finished, which means that their whole lives are spent on grass and hay, whereas it is permitted to actually finish supposedly grass-fed animals on non-grass stuff. We'll just put it that way. So farmers markets have really been quite good for us. And I should point out, I mean, again, to a degree, we're just a right business at the right place. Portland, Oregon is a very foodie town. People are really into food. They're into good food. So we are playing to, and we have to a market that is quite receptive for exactly the animals that we're raising. So let's talk about restaurants. The easiest restaurant to deal with is if you happen to have a Scottish themed bar in your city or town that sells hamburgers, and just go to the manager or owner of the bar and say, surely in a Scottish themed hamburger or bar, the meat between the buns ought to come from a Scottish Highland animal. It's a real easy sell. And if they make a big deal out of Bobby Burns's birthday, which most do, you've got other cuts available to that they may want to feature for those events. Now, straight restaurants, you might think, and I did, that surely a restaurant would be a really good customer to have because, again, you get, I mean, their whole point is to put food in people's mouths. So getting Highland beef in people's mouths would be a really good thing. But they are really, frankly, a pain in the rear to deal with. In the first place, you have to work like a dog, unless you have an inn, you know somebody. You have to work like a dog to get your meat into the restaurant. And then it's usually the chef who decides whether they're going to buy your meat, but B, what meat, what cuts they're going to buy. And what we've found is typically they want to high grade your inventory. For example, we had this one restaurant that only wanted primals, and they wanted tenderloin, sirloin, and rib primals. So it's the whole muscle, because they wanted to make the steaks themselves, fine. Well, then when the chef moves on, as they frequently do, the new chef, of course, wants to establish who's in charge. And the way they establish who's in charge is to make you do the presentations all over again. And there you are presenting, wanting to sell meat to the same restaurant you've been selling to. And you've probably got, as we did, primals that weren't purchased, but still are in your freezer. So we do a little bit of it now. Of course, the COVID pandemic changed the world a little bit, a lot actually here with restaurants. But when they got back up and running again, I've not been chasing them very hard. We do some of it, but not a lot of it. The other thing that we've done are farm tours. Very popular, extremely popular. So popular that I actually have, before the pandemic, I limited the number of tours to no more than 2 a week, because it took somewhere between an hour and an hour and a half, or rather an hour and 2 hours to do a tour. We don't require that anyone buy meat. If they love the animals or want to see the animals, we're happy to show them and talk about how we raise them and the benefits of Highland beef. They buy meat. I mean, most of them buy meat right on the spot and then come back and buy more. But they also comment favorably on our website and our Facebook page. And I guess it's the Facebook page they comment on. So it builds good PR. The pandemic changed that. We just had to shut it down until the vaccines came along, and we require people who want a tour of our farm to be vaccinated. That causes some distress with some people, but we're back to having to restrict the number of tours to 2 a week. I just can't take more time than that. But it's also enjoyable from my standpoint. Frequently, it's actually a lot of fun to see how excited people get when they see a bunch of Highland cattle and then learn about it. So that's creating the demand. I sometimes think it's like chumming the water if you're fishing. We did everything we could think of to get as much meat in as many mouths as we possibly could. But at the same time, I mean, once you start developing the market, you better have the volume to meet it. So you excite somebody about Highland beef, and then you really don't want to have a call with them that says, oh, by the way, it's going to be a year and a half before I can get you 10 pounds of hamburger. That's the end of that customer. And this has proven to be a real challenge. One thing we did is become more active in our regional association, the Northwest Highland Cattle Association. It's just a networking opportunity, get to meet more people who are involved with Highland cattle, who may have occasionally animals that they want to sell. But the first thing I thought of, or really tried, was to promote the idea of a cooperative of those of us in the Northwest who raise Highland cattle. Simple formula. And I put together, we hosted a meeting and I put together a financial pro forma for it, where we would all share in the profits of the co-op proportionately, meaning that be a fraction where the numerator was the hanging weight volume that you put in, And the denominator was the hanging weight volume that everybody put in. And I showed them that on a pro forma basis, they could expect to receive on a gross basis between $4.25 and $5 a pound hanging weight, which is substantially better than the commodity people get. It was not quite, but almost a total flop. We got one taker. Now that one taker has proved to be a fabulous business partner. She and her husband do a great job. They're easy to work with, and we are both mutually supportive of what the other is doing. So that, in that respect, it wasn't a waste of time. But on the other hand, co-op would have solved a lot of problems in terms of volume, but it didn't get anywhere. So then I had to think about how I was going to meet the demand that I could already see was starting to develop. So we buy wean calves, and we buy slaughter ready animals, and we also buy hamburger cows, bulls, and older steers. What I did for wean, let's take wean calves first. What I did is come up with a price, which it's $600 a calf at weaning, which if the person who owns it will do the math and do it honestly, they are better off selling me their calf at $600 than raising it to 30 to 36 months and selling it at commodity prices. I can afford to pay $600 for a wean calf and take it through 2 winters because I can get a premium. Our retail prices are on our website, and we also sell, as you'll see later on a bulk basis at $5.50 a pound hanging weight. So again, I mean, I just say to people, do the math, and some have, because we buy wean calves every year. With respect to excuse me, steak ready animals, or what we call steak ready animals, we have had a customer that has a meat CSA, and we sell to them on a discounted basis at $4.50 a pound hanging weight. So what we did is we figured, well, we will buy slaughter ready animals at $3.75 a pound. In other words, that's what the producer will get, and we will take only 75 cents a pound. Excuse me, only 75 cents a pound, because it's our customer and we're the ones who have to do all the logistics of dealing with the customer and coordinating the animals and that sort of thing. And we're absolutely transparent with our partners who sell into that market. And last year, I forget how many we bought that way last year, but maybe 25, maybe, yeah, 25 or 30, I think. So that's what we did with steak ready animals. And one of the financial tools that we used for them and for hamburger cows actually came about during the pandemic by happenstance. The slaughterhouse, the processing plant we use, USDA inspected, came to us early in the pandemic and said, excuse me, and said that they no longer, starting on a certain date in the future, they'd no longer handle quarter halves and wholes with individually customized cutting instructions. They were, their services were in such demand, they needed to be working at maximum efficiency all the time. They had terminated relations with 108 producers in the North Willamette Valley, mainly those who only sold quarter halves and wholes and didn't sell very many of them. But they kept people like us. And so what my wife and I did for 17 animals, processed with what became our standard cutting instructions, which we worked with the plant on. We inventoried every piece of meat, every bone, every bit of offal that came out of those animals. And we took, and we developed, as you can see on the screen, a percentage of hanging weight for each of the cuts. For example, it's 2.7% of hanging weight for sirloin tip roast. And then we just took the arithmetic average of all that recovery by cut. And that's the chart that you see in front of you here, which also, obviously, if you want to, when you're thinking about the value of your animals, you can just plug in actual hanging weights and then extend for poundage what that would be, and then just multiply it by the retail price that you're charging, and that'll give you, what the value, the gross value is of an animal of various different hanging weights. But it's been a very helpful tool to us. Now we, next slide. We sell in bulk. What I used to, or I still tell people, we'll sell it any way you want to buy it. But we do sell it in bulk in a number of ways. And the screen now shows you a quarter, half, and whole. And we, what we do when someone is considering buying in this way, we do several things. First of all, we explain that it isn't an identifiable animal. Second, we're able to show them the previous slide, what we call our pick sheet, so that they know exactly what they're going to get. It has taken the uncertainty and mystery out of buying in bulk. And as you can see, they will get, and we can tell them that you're going to get, if you buy a quarter, you're going to get at least 100 pounds in your freezer. And then when we pull or pick the order together and we deliver it to them, we give them a packet which includes our pick sheet, which has on it each package of meat that is in their order. So they know how many T-bone steaks, what the size ranges or weight ranges, that sort of thing. I didn't think we would like this because it is more work for us, but it's turned out we love it for two reasons. One is because our customers love it. They really have responded favorably to the certainty of this method of buying in bulk. And secondly, as you can see, what we use as a hanging weight is 525 pounds. Well, our animals, we do have occasionally animals that have hanging weights between 500 and 650 pounds, but not all of them make that size. So we have, as a result, been able to sell more meat. by using this methodology. And we also used the previous slide, our pick sheet, to figure out what we could pay for hamburger cows. And we worked pretty hard to get a hamburger account or accounts. And frustratingly came up short several times, but we finally got one, and now we've got two. And so we are able to provide an outlet rather than the auction yard for people whose cow or bull needs to find another use. I'd like to mention one thing about quality. Again, our program is purebred, grass-fed, grass-finished. And so, and trust me, you can tell right away by looking at it if the meat from an animal is from an animal that was not grass-fed and grass-finished. It just is a different color, and the fat is different too. So you just can't have that. So you need to know well and trust your partners, whose animals the meat from the animals you're selling. I mean, the one person, for example, who spoke up and said, yes, the co-op sounds interesting and I'd like to try that. It's a great example. Their animals are fabulous, and they do a great job, and the meat is the way the meat should be. Third thing, this, by the way, is a photograph of a sirloin steak, grass-fed, grass-finished sirloin steak. And you can see how deep, dark red it is. And that's our label. And it's USDA inspected. Even before the pandemic, processing was an issue. In the North Willamette Valley, which is where our farming is, there were only 5 plants that were USDA inspected. One of them is big, and it's predominantly a pork operation, not exclusively. And we're really small potatoes compared to the people that they do business with. Another one, bluntly, was run by a lying bunch of crooks. We took 3 animals there, and those were the last 3 animals that they'll ever see from this farm. And so that left us with 2. Oh, sorry, there was one other where the a real entrepreneur owned it, and they only processed animals from his operations. So that left us with 2, and we chose to try and work with an older plant that had just recently been purchased by 2 young men who were chefs in Napa Valley and came up to the North Willamette Valley to alter their careers somewhat. The plant was pretty rickety. And so immediately after they bought it, I went to meet with them, and very nice young men, entrepreneurial, you could just see it. And so they were giving me a tour, and you could see how rickety the darn thing was. I had been aware of the plant for many years, but just hadn't been through it. And one of the first things that I noticed is that the alleyway from the holding pens into the knock box and the plant itself was just series of open rail panels held together with wire. No sheeting, no anything, just open. And I said to him, I said, you're going to have trouble getting any animal through that alleyway, let alone a horned animal. I said, the horned animals are going to have their horns catch on the panels. So what I described to them is what they really needed, which is a completely sheeted with a sheet metal on the inside of it, alleyway, high, so that even if an animal rears up, it's not going to be able to see out, and then having those stoppers periodically so the animal can't back up. They agreed, but they said, we don't have the money to do that. So my point to them and to you is that I thought of them as a partner, and I needed them to succeed. I desperately needed them to succeed. So I told them what I would do is I would pay for half of it, and I'd loan them the money for the other half. And that's what we did. And that isn't the only help that I've given them, but they aren't just a vendor to you. They are your partner. You need them to succeed, and you need to think about ways to help them succeed. They may not know some of the things that they need, and you might be able to point that out to them, but you do need to treat them like your partner. We sell hides, Highland hides. It's a material part of our business. And we approached the young man who now is doing the tanning for us in the same way. He's our partner. He because we process a fair number of them, he said, I won't require a deposit from you. And I said, oh yes, you will. You're not my banker. Every time we send him a deposit, he's appreciative because he's got some expense that is coming his way. The other thing I'd like to suggest to you, I mean, we all, regardless of where we are in dire need of more processing. And I happen to live in a state, Oregon, where citizen involvement in a legislative process is a long-standing tradition. So in addition to working with the processing plant that we have partnered up with, we got active in various other organizations that were lobbying the state legislature. And what is occurring here now as a result of lobbying efforts is that there will be state licensed and inspected processing plants under certain new rules, so that you can get individually packaged meat and sell it in state. Can't sell it across the river to Vancouver or into Idaho or down into California, but you can sell it in state, and it's a big advance for us. It will open up more opportunities for people to get meat into the hands of consumers. So that's, I don't look how much that I wanted to talk for about 5 or 10 minutes less. That's what I had prepared to say.
All right. So, Rick, we appreciate that, and appreciate all your experience and sharing that with us tonight. And I've thrown the screen back up here. If you have questions, if you can send them to me, you can text them, email them, or you can put them in the chat, and we'll get to your questions. So we'll start off here, Rick, with a question that was asked earlier. through the chat from Julianne, and the question was, why did you have to beg to get into the farmers markets?
Because two things. One, there were already commodity beef people at the farmers markets, and they were, our experience was that they resisted vigorously any additional meat salespeople. And I would explain to the market manager that this is a specialty item. It is not a commodity. I mean, it isn't what I would say sometimes. It isn't for everybody. I mean, some people really like fat. And if they really like fat and that's what they like to taste, they shouldn't be buying Scottish Highland beef. So it is different. And we met tremendous resistance from the commodity beef people. And yeah, at first it was some markets we were only allowed to go if the commodity beef person couldn't make it that week.
Sure. And so, and speaking of commodity beef, that leads right into the next question, Rick. So you showed us the chart where you what you charge, you know, for your quarters and halves, and you showed us the chart where you had the 525 pounds and what you get normally off of a steer to help you determine that. How do you determine or change your prices when commodity prices take swings like they have recently?
Well, first, we consciously chose, when the pandemic hit, we made a strategic decision not to increase our prices. We saw the commodity people change their prices 2 and 3 times in a short several month period. And we told people that our prices were profitable when we set them. Our cost had not changed at that point. And so the only reason to increase price was because you could, and it just felt greedy to us. So we didn't do it. And we've more or less stayed with that philosophy. I mean, we recently, this year, we did increase prices because, you know, our hay cost has gone up, our insurance cost has gone up, and our fuel cost has gone up. So we did adjust, not all of our prices, but probably about 70% of them. So I am not influenced by what the commodity people do. We stand on our own 2 feet. Our prices are profitable to us. And if there's something happens that changes that, we'll change the price. But the commodity people can do what they want.
Sure. And I think part of the key there you said is you got to know what your costs are, right? You have to know what your costs are. You know, obviously they are going through a different marketing channel in a commodity beef setting. So the questions are coming in now. They're rolling really well. Appreciate everybody sending those in. You can see text, email, or put them in the chat. We'll grab a couple here off the chat here quick, and then we'll go back to the email. Here's another one. So in your package, this question looks like it's referring to your package with the quarters, halves, and wholes. So the question was, so consumers no longer get to choose their specific cuts?
That's correct. That's part of the change. And yeah, that is.
And it gets to your point of that then they're consistent every time that they're asking for something, right? You come back and they expect a similar experience. That's how you've created that.
Right.
Here's another question. This one's from Not a Farm. How long does it take from hooves on the ground to packaged beef? And is your decision to process based on time or weight?
That varies. With our CSA customer, they wanted to sell bone in. So we had to get animals into the processing plant younger than 30 months. The USDA rule is after 30 months, you don't get bone in rib, you don't get T-bone. Instead of T-bone, you get more tenderloin and you get New York strip. And instead of rib steak, you get ribeye, which is a boneless rib steak. So that drove that part of the market. I actually, for our retail, I actually like to get the animal between 30 months and 36 months, no more than 36 months. They're bigger, that's point one. And point two is we sell every boneless ribeye steak that we can get our hands on. It is a very popular steak. And the same with New York strip. But for, you can tell people that a T-bone is New York strip and a tenderloin, they still want the New York strip. So that's what we do. But occasionally, and unfortunately, we still do have some smaller animals, and at some point they just age out. That they get to 36 months, or they're getting to 36 months, they go, and you just have smaller steaks.
Sure. Here's another question on email here. This is from Jerry and Nancy Thomas. Thanks for the question. If anybody else has questions, you can see how they'll send those questions up here on the screen. Their question is, how much do the hides sell for?
We are selling them at $900 now because we had a bunch of them done. And the cost was, I think it was $550. That's going to change. And I don't know what we're going to do until I see the final numbers from the new guy. But my guess is that we're going to have two sizes. The steer size would be probably around $1,200. And then for the large size, either a really big steer or a hamburger cow, that would probably be $1,500 or $1,600. But right now we're selling them for $900 because of the lower cost of tanning.
Sure. So it goes back to your cost, and you got to know your cost to set your price.
That's right.
Here's a couple questions here I'll grab from Glacier's Edge Farm, and then I'll go to the folks that are texting me here. So first question is, can you give us your short, very short, abbreviated canned, how is Highland beef different than Angus?
It is grass-fed, grass-finished. The meat is deep, dark red and very flavorful. It is the meat that is flavorful. Angus puts on a lot of fat, particularly over the back, because that's how they stay warm in the wintertime. The double layer of hair on a Highland animal is one of the reasons that they're so lean. They don't need the fat. And they evolved naturally into a leaner animal. So what fat is there is identifiable. It's not infused into the muscle. And that's why it's deep, dark red as opposed to pink. I hope that was short enough.
There you go. Depends on how many people are standing in line at the farmer's market usually. So if there's nobody there, they get the 5-minute elevator ride. If there's 4 people in line, I say it loud enough that I hit them all at the same time usually. So, all right, another one here. We'll get Glacier's Edge Farm. Thanks for sending the questions. If you got questions, text them, email them, or message, and we'll get them. I can get them any way that you send them here. So their other question was, you mentioned that your website drives a fair amount of business. How much of that do you ship rather than have the customer pick up?
We deliver for free within 50 miles of the farm. And our farm is 34 miles from the center of Portland. And so we give the customer the option of coming to the farm and picking up, or we'll deliver it if they're within 50 miles. That's the bulk of what we do. Before the pandemic, we could ship on the West Coast relatively inexpensively because we could use FedEx ground. That no longer is reliable after FedEx adopted new pandemic-related work rules. Our meat is frozen. It must get to its destination within 2 days. And on the third day, it starts to thaw. So our interstate sales have been greatly hampered. We essentially are only shipping interstate to people who are not cost conscious. We ship, for example, about 30 pounds of bavette every few months to a couple in Florida, and they are wealthy enough, they don't care how much it costs.
Sure. Can you talk a little bit, Rick, so back to the meat processing part of this itself, how long are you hanging? Is it dry aged? Why do you do the packaging that you do?
We hang for 2 weeks. And I like the see-through packaging. I think it helps to sell. In fact, I know it does. At a farmer's market, for example, I love to whip out a steak, or a London broil is usually the one that I'll bring out because most people have never seen meat like that.
So the London broil gives you an opportunity to have that conversation with somebody who's never seen that before.
Right.
Another question here on farmers markets here, a text that came through. Again, you can email, text, or you can send a message here on chat. What's your average sale at a farmer's market? I think they mean how much does somebody buy?
Oh, that ranges, that varies quite a bit. My favorite farmer's market is a food farmer's market, meaning that people come to grocery shop. So essentially what you get are lots of sales somewhere between, say, $30 and maybe $80 or something like that. And what they're doing is that they're buying for their week's meals. And they buy meat from us, and our partner next door, a guy who I like to sell with, is a vegetable salesman. They'll go to him and buy the veggies that they want for the week. So it's lots of transactions. That's the kind, I mean, as we've had some experience with it, those are the farmers markets I think are really, really good. And I like to go to.
And you talked about in the building the market activities that you talked about earlier. And this question looks like it's specific to farmers market again here. How many of the people come to the farm or buy outside the farmers market? And I think it means once they've bought at the farmers market.
Oh yeah, what happens? Some people, I mean, you just see every week at the farmers market because their buying pattern isn't in bulk. It is they just want a grocery shop. It's like they're going to Safeway or Albertsons, and their buying pattern doesn't change. It's just a weekly deal. But not insignificantly, some of them pretty quickly figure out that they're better off buying in bulk. And we have numerous bulk buying customers who originally found us at a farmer's market. And they will, I mean, sometimes, which makes it a little difficult logistically, but it's not uncommon for us to take someone's bulk purchase for them to pick up at the farmer's market.
Here's another question that came in through text here, and you can keep the questions going here. You can text them, email, or you can message here. So this one comes from Steep Hollow Ranch. Their question is, did you ever come close to finding a permanent partnership with a restaurant, or is there too much turnaround in management?
The answer is no. Yeah, no. I obviously, from what I said, and I'm also not chasing them either now. And it's counterintuitive, but no.
And I think you said it earlier. I've also dealt with restaurants. You know, they change, right? And as soon as they change, everything that you worked for is out the door. Generally, no chef in the history of any chef that I ever worked with repeats what the previous chef did.
Isn't that the truth? You know.
So, great. Well, we're a minute past 8 o'clock here Central Time, so that's 6:01 your time, Rick. And this was scheduled for an hour, and we got through most all of the questions here. So I think we did pretty good. So Rick, again, we really appreciate you taking time and your knowledge and sharing that with the greater Highland community. For anybody who knows anybody who missed the presentation, we'll be posting this on the ACA website, and then we'll be emailing out and putting it on Facebook and letting everybody know that they'll be able to find that on the website. So with that, thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. Take care and keep promoting Highland beef. Have a great night.
Thank you.